Hi guys, we're back. Me and Harry, Deception Part 3. How are you, brother?
Doing really good. On yourself?
Oh yeah, mate. Same. Always good. Did you see the little 2-minute video that I put up with Fauci and Gates and that?
I laughed really hard because
parody. I got that from Max Egan BitChute because yeah, and I thought I've got to put that on. It's amazing.
I at first thought it was real, and then I realized it was just they were just mimicking other people's voices.
Absolutely brilliant. But I was talking to a friend of mine last night, and he's a guy. He's from the UK, married to a Chinese girl, and he loves Asian women. Right, just in general, he loves Asian women. So I sent him a picture of an Asian woman, and let me just see if I can find it. Oh, is it gone? Oh, there we go. And I'm gonna share this with you. This is what I sent to him last night. Now, do you think that is a beautiful girl or not?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think anybody would disagree that that is not a beautiful girl. There's just one problem. Her name is Kevin.
Yeah, I figured there was a catch there.
Yeah, Kevin Ballot, B-A-L-O-T. You can find him online. Filipino that won the best Miss Philippines or whatever it was, won some beauty pageant, some beauty competition. But yeah, that is a guy. And my friend's like, yeah, that's nice, you know. And I'm like, bro, that's a dude. He's like, what? What? You kidding me? You kidding me? But before we get into it, because I'm going to, I want to just throw this in kind of off topic a little bit. I was watching this before we came online over on BitChute, the Apex Deception edited version. Now this, I'll put the link in the show notes below. This is from Rob, the observation deck. Now Robert and I, we're kind of internet friends. We email each other a few times, and this guy is just off the charts when it comes to this work. The link to his book is here. It's called The Apex Deception. People just click on that and download it. And talking about essentially, you know, strawman banks. A lot of his work led me to do the video with Karen called The Great Mortgage Fraud, and I couldn't put it. I tried to put it on my channel, but they said it was too long, so I put it on my BitChute channel. Karen grabbed it and put it on hers. So again, I'll put the link to that in the description.
He does a thorough job on explaining how the trust system does in a lot of his other works as well.
Yeah, and how it's all, again, it's all it falls into the deception. It falls into the deception topic. Sorry, someone's trying to call me. So let me stop that. But what it took me to understand, watching that, I had one of your epiphanies, you know, and it's this, what we know as the all-seeing eye.
Yeah.
Well, if the all-seeing eye is our pineal gland, then the all-seeing eye doesn't represent evil, it represents us, all-seeing. We've said for a long time now that the information is out there, we just have to see it.
Yeah, the collective us is probably what the reference to the all-seeing eye is if we can all, and I don't like to use the term wake up, but just open eyes and be aware of what's happening around us. And with all these masks being worn, you can tell who is aware of what's happening and who is not aware of what's happening.
Yeah.
That seeing eye is not open in most people today.
And I think that we should also stop using this word woke or awaken or whatever. I think we should change it, and it should be aware.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because we're not woke. We're just now aware of everything that's going on. The whole deception about everything. So yeah, watching Robert's video, and then suddenly I went, "Oh my God!" Again, it's been twisted. It's like in the last podcast we did, we spoke about the swastika being the mark of Cain, and as you rightly said, it can be found in every country in the world, right?
Yeah, I think if you think about if Cain went on to live, and he was marked, or there was a mark put on him, and he went on to survive until this present day, that mark is going to be everywhere. It's going to be in every civilization, every country, all around this plane.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it was twisted, right? Like 70 years ago, it was turned from being a positive, good symbol into being what people see it and automatically think of today.
Yeah, the association is always to be negative or to have an evil connotation, and that's just not true.
So tell me about what you were telling me on email the other day about the Watchers. This guys, we're still talking about the creation 1, creation 2, biblical creations, and the fact that Jeremiah was what you would probably call a Tartarian, part of the civilization that built all the wonderful architecture that we're now talking about, or so many channels are talking about, what we call the cathedrals and churches and pantheons and castles and star forts and all these houses of parliament. I mean, if you've ever looked at the Belgian houses of parliament, mate, it's absolutely incredible. One of the most beautiful buildings I've ever seen.
Well, we were talking mainly about Nephilim and how it's translated into the word giants. And it's just hard to just imagine that we're going to be talking about people who are 12, 20, 30 feet tall. But again, we also came to the conclusion that Nephilim could also be talking about a giant, not in stature, but maybe in title. And I started thinking, and if you recall, I mentioned, well, what does Nephilim even sound like? If there's a word today that we could say sounds like Nephilim, and I said, well, what about nephew? And so I started looking up the etymology of nephew and where it's used. And in one instance, I saw that nephew was almost used as like a kind of euphemism. And so a euphemism is when you use a word as like a code in order to avoid insulting someone else.
Yeah.
So in this case, the word nephew was used by some clergy to explain who maybe their offspring was. Because as well as I do that in the Catholic Church, the priest is not allowed to have sexual relations with women or men, boys, or whatever. They do anyway. And so naturally, they're going to have an offspring. So a lot of times these children are explained away as, oh, they're my nephew. They are my sister's child or my brother's child. And in this case, we look at the nephew is really their son, and he has to kind of explain them away. So I started looking into kind of digging more on nephew. And so if you think about a nephew, he is the son of a godly person. Of a clergyman, and so he has power, but he needs to retain his power. So that's where he disguises who that offspring is. So again, there you have that whole concept of the Watchers were supposedly created to protect humanity.
Right.
But in the end, what they end up doing is they corrupt the bloodlines. And instead of watching them to protect them, they intermix with them. So then I dug one more step deeper, and I said, well, who do we know that was instrumental in changing some of the thought processes of the people of the Western world? Typically in the United States where I live, we saw a big change in the paradigm of thinking in the late 20s when we hear a guy named Ed Bernays becomes instrumental in the advertising campaigning industry, both in the private sector and in government sector as well.
Yeah.
One of the things that people don't know that he is the nephew, actually the double nephew of the most famous psychoanalyst ever, I think, ever known.
No, Freud, yeah.
Sigmund Freud.
Yeah.
And supposedly, whenever Bernays would be introduced to anyone that he was maybe at a dinner party or a casual conversation, within 10 minutes of the conversation, everyone would always ask him, "How about your uncle?"
Wow.
So he could have been stigmatized by that.
Wow.
But just to, I don't want to make this all about him. I do want to make some points, though, that Bernays pretty much changed the way people thought. For the women's movement, he made it very popular for women to smoke, and he called cigarettes like liberty torches.
Yeah.
Women had just recently gotten the ability to vote, and they were now going to be the hinging point of how he was going to destroy the society of the West, giving them manly duties, destruction of the nuclear family, sending them to work, being more like men. Once you destroy the nuclear family, now you had children coming home from school and not having a parent there. You couldn't have one breadwinner anymore. You needed to have two. So this affected the way the family structure was. And then eventually these kids grow up with no parents to raise them. And when their parents get old, they pretty much say, you weren't there for me, so I'm not for you. There's the degradation and a cyclical degradation of that family unit.
Well, as we were saying before we started recording this, the opposite is true here. You have three generations of the same family living in the same household: your grandparents, parents, and the kids. Now, it's interesting what you said about the priest class, because I've told you before, that here in China, if a girl has already got a child, she ain't going to find a husband, right? She's not going to she's not going to find a Chinese husband. Let's put it that way. So what's happened, and what I've actually, I don't have first-hand experience, but I have experience of this, so I know it to be true, that if a girl has a relationship with a guy and she becomes pregnant and has a child out of wedlock, and those guys, split up, that girl's got no chance really of finding a husband in China. So what they do, if she's lucky enough to have a sister or a cousin or whatever, she'll pass her child off as being her niece, right? This is my sister's daughter or my sister's son. So then she's free to go and find a husband, because that husband will never know that she's already had a child, or she will never admit that she's already had a child, right? And that child, that niece or nephew is actually her child. So that happens here quite a lot. Mm-hmm. And, while we're talking about kids, I want to bring up what I was telling you about earlier. I was watching a video yesterday by Spacebusters. I forgot what it was called. I'll try and find it and link it below. Where he was talking about copper, and he was talking about copper in its natural state and how much it's mixed with dirt or dust. And it kind of jumped out and smacked me in the face. And I was thinking about creation 2. God made man from the dust of the ground, right?
Exactly.
Now, copper. My ex-wife was Rh negative. And apparently they had more copper in their blood than the rest of us. Now, getting back to kids, I don't want to give all my personal information out, but I think in this particular instance, it's important. When I first met my now ex-wife, she'd already got a son. He was 4 years old. Now, my ex-wife was born with 6 fingers and 6 toes. The 6 fingers, the extra finger didn't have a bone, so they just put some cotton around them and they tied them off. But her feet had to be operated on. They didn't take out the little toe, they took out the next one in. And her son, that she'd already got when I met her, was also born with 6 fingers. Now, we went on to have two more kids, or 2 kids, neither of which were born with 6 fingers or 6 toes. But she's one of 8 brothers and sisters, and it's 4 girls and 4 boys in her family. And many of her siblings and many of their kids were born with 6 fingers and 6 toes, or one or the other, either 6 fingers or 6 toes. And even recently, within the last 3 or 4 years, I heard from my daughter that one of her aunties had a baby girl born with 6 toes on each foot. So again, this is going back to what I was saying about the hybrids, the creation 1 mating with, or seeing that the creation 2 were fair and taking them for their wives, having kids, and then those people growing up to be hybrids. Now, the other interesting thing is that my ex-wife has got to be the least spiritual person I've ever met in my life. She thinks it's all hocus pocus, it's all mumbo jumbo. She won't have a bar of it, right? Very, very materialistic, extremely materialistic, and not in the least bit spiritual. So, which is the opposite for me. I'm not what you would call a materialistic person. And I've always understood. I've never dismissed spirituality as being hocus pocus in the way that she would. I'm not disrespecting her. I mean, we were together for like 29 years. I'm not disrespecting her in any way. I'm just laying out my own experiences compared with what we're all learning now, especially what you and I have been talking about or focusing on, which is the biblical creation 1, creation 2. Who was Jeremiah? Because he was obviously here before creation 1. So, we've got a big old mismatch or mosh of spaghetti, and we're trying to find the end. You know what I mean?
Yeah, finding that end, it may never happen. But definitely, yeah, you're so right. We are constantly looking at, well, I learned this from my mother, my grandmother, and we go back as far as we can. And we have to come to that realization that not only were we fooled, but so were they. And so when we're learning from someone who had already been fooled, it just seems that much harder to break from.
Well, I mean, they say you only need, I forget who it was, give me 1 generation of kids. I forget who that was. But that's really all you need. And again, we can maybe not now, but we can tie that back to the orphan trains. Mm-hmm. Back in the late 18, early 1900s. I mean, what happened to all the parents? You've only got to raise those kids or put those kids in school and teach them complete and utter bullshit. And many of those kids are going to become teachers, and they're going to go and regurgitate in their classroom what they was taught in when they were at school. So, the evidence is there. You do only need 1 generation of kids in order to change the whole of society and essentially deceive the whole world. Mm-hmm. What is it the Bible says about Satan? He shall deceive the whole world. The greatest trick the devil ever played was convincing the world that he didn't exist.
Yeah, and I think if you really look at old newspapers from the early turn of the century, the 19th century, even the 20th century, you'll see that even in schools, they did teach concepts like a flat earth. And those went away just in the last 100 years, if not less. And that whole concept of a globe was only around for, not too many hundreds of years. So bottom line is it didn't take long to change the thinking pattern of what the elites wanted us to think.
Karen's just put up a video showing that Neil Armstrong, and of course, I've said for a long time, Neil A is alien backwards. Neil Armstrong and Yuri Gagarin are the same dude, one and the same.
I saw that video. I haven't watched it yet, but I did see her other video on the other astronaut who underwent that sex change, and he's both the male and the female.
Oh, is it Jessica Meir or something? And it's funny that her surname is Mir, or her surname is Mir, M-E-I-R. And do you remember the Mir space station? I mean, you can't make this shit up, can you?
Yeah. No, it's in plain sight, but it's so close to your face that you can't really make sense of what you're looking at.
It's pretty much under our noses, and we can't, and for the most part, we can't see it. And when it's pointed out, somebody said to me the other day that I really think that a lot of people don't want to see what's going on right now because they're too scared. But just going off subject a minute, because I think this is important, we tend to categorize people into one of two groups, either the aware, as what we would refer to us as being, and the NPCs, the mask wearing, right? But I think there's a much, in fact, I know there's a much bigger group right in between. And they are the, I don't care. I just want to get on with my life. Leave me alone.
Yeah.
Leave me alone. Don't push your ID. Don't push your flat earth on me, and don't push your mask on me. Yeah, I don't want any of it. Leave me alone. And these are the guys, in my opinion, that are probably much greater in number and are going to be the biggest danger to the powers that shouldn't be, because these guys literally don't want any hassle. Just leave me alone. They want to go and do the job that they actually enjoy doing. They want to come home and spend some quality time with the family. They want to go on holiday 3 or 4 times a year. They just want to live their lives. Yeah?
Yeah. Well, maintain and stay in that comfort zone, but they don't realize that in that comfort zone, they are actually still suffering, and they're being used. They're just used to that notion of, tomorrow I'm just going to keep doing what I've been doing, and that's just not.
But they're also of the mindset that when they're presented with any of the information that we talk about here, they don't want to know. When they're told, you've got to wear a mask, they go, no. You know what I mean? They're not on either quote unquote side. It's just like, piss off, leave me alone, go away. I'm not interested in any of it. Now, that doesn't make them stupid. That doesn't make them, I wouldn't use any negative adjectives to describe them. They just want to be left alone. They're just not interested, right? I'm not interested in that. I'm not bothered. Go away. Leave me alone.
Well, look, if you were to ask me 4 years ago some of the things that I'm talking about today, I would have told you that you were crazy.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Likewise.
Honestly, anyone who is sitting on the same notions and ideas and concepts and theories from 5 years ago, you got to say, are you still breathing?
Yeah.
Are you? Yeah. It's that sense of awareness that we keep talking about.
Yeah, I agree. But again, I think that most of these people that we're talking about, they're just not interested. These are the ones that want to go back to normal, whatever normal is, right? And we know that we're never going to go back to what life was like in 2019. It's never going to happen. But to them, that's their normal, and that's what they're fighting to go back to.
But normal was not good to begin with. Yet so things are so bad now that normal bad is looking good.
Yeah.
It's just like boiling frog, right? Yeah. You put your hand in the cold water and one in the warm water, and you can't tell the difference after the water gets boiled. You know,
Totally agree.
It's a reference, and they've made it so bad that the terrible lifestyle of even last year or the year before is something that they're wishing they had back. And I say, I don't want to go back to where I was. I want to go forward into something far better, superior than what we've already been dealt with.
Well, and I think we can all manifest that. If that's what we want, and we do, I think we can manifest that, because we are the creators.
We are.
We create our own reality. If everything's bad out there, everything's bad. You know, I'm not going to mention any names, but, you know, I got an email from a guy yesterday, I think, and he was going on about how bad things are, about, you know, you got to wear a mask, and then you're going to be forced to take a V, and businesses are closing down and all this. I'm like, why? Well, because we're told to. Okay, well, if you were told to go and jump off the top of the Empire State Building, would you do it? Well, of course not. So why are you doing all this? Why are you following along with these quote-unquote orders when you wouldn't follow along with it if they told you to go and jump off a cliff? It's the same difference.
It's all about compliance.
Yeah.
They're saying that, oh, Trump is going to force us to take a vaccine. No, he's not. What's going to end up happening is, if you want to fly on an airplane, you might have to get one. If you want to get a driver's license, you might have to get one. And that's where you're going to have to say, I just don't want these things, or I refuse to take these services. Or you get a collective group together and you stand up and you say, this is the line I'm going to draw. This is all of us together as a common group. And how much power does that group have as a collective?
Well, yeah, but again, you see, this all goes back to conditioning, and up to a point we can call it natural conditioning, because we've all done it. You know, when you've got young kids, you know, your wife might say, look, you can't go out to play unless you eat all your dinner, or you can't, you know, you can't watch TV until you've done your homework.
Yeah.
So what that translates to in today's world is you can't get on a plane unless you've had a V. Well, whichever way you look at it, blackmail is illegal. Yeah. And that's what it is.
Exactly.
Harry, when you say to your kid, you can't watch TV until you finished your homework, that is blackmail, whichever way you look at it. But we don't consider it to be blackmail in that way. It's just we think we're doing the right thing for our kids. Which a lot of times we are, because if they don't do the homework, they're going to get in trouble with the teacher the next day. So look, get your homework done, then you can watch TV. Is a better way to say it than, if you don't do your homework, then you can't watch TV, because that is blackmail, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, if they say, look, get a V and then you can get on a plane, well, no, you know, I'm getting on the plane. And if they say you can't get on the plane unless you have the V, that is blackmail. Okay, I'll see you in court.
Yeah.
And if more people understand that, and if more people stand up instead of going, oh, okay, I've got to fly to wherever, so stick it in me. Yeah, go on, commit suicide, because that's what you're doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think a lot of people have to stand up, and through their actions, and like I said, forming a collective group, all united, have to stand up to this. If they don't, and of course, like you said, we are the creators. The reason why these people or these controllers, the elites, they need us, because we are the ones that have the original understanding and the ability to create.
Yeah.
They don't. Yeah. Once we're gone, they are going to be up shit creek, because they can't create anything on their own.
That's right. That's right. Well, I think that's a really good note to end on, because we're just coming up to the half-hour mark, and if we go over half an hour, I can't. They won't let me upload it. So, again, thank you very much, Harry, and thanks to everyone for watching. And we'll see you next week.
All right. Take care, everyone.
Cheers.